Welcome to this presentation, beginning with describing the characteristics of instructional design. To begin, there are 7 characteristics of any successful instructional design. The first, instructional design is a student-centered process. It's also a goal-oriented process. Instructional design is a creative process and is focused on meaningful performance with outcomes that are measurable, reliable, and valid. Instructional design is empirical and self-correcting, and is also a team effort. And we will break down each of these 7 characteristics next. Instructional design is a student-centered process. Student-centered means that the design is focused on the learners, not the teacher's comfort or convenience. Teaching should support knowledge and skill development. Reiser and Dempsey suggest that engagement of learners is key. For this, you want to design less passive lectures, like death by PowerPoint, or rote handouts that require very little thinking. Instead, aim for interactive strategies that drive deeper learning and critical thinking, like group discussions, projects, and technology-based learning. Instructional design is a goal-oriented process. It's important to design learning with a clear why. Why are we learning this? Why is this information important? Goals should reflect both student learning needs and also stakeholder expectations and organizational standards. Without goals, we really can't have instructional design. There would be nothing to implement or evaluate. Communicating the project vision and maintaining open communication lines throughout the instructional design process is essential to a strong project. Creativity. Creativity has a place in the design process, and just because a design is structured doesn't mean that it can't also be creative. Creativity speaks to varying approaches to designing lessons and not being afraid to try something new and unique. Reiser and Dempsey remind us that creative lessons encourage engagement, and engaged learners produce better results. Meaningful performance. Learning is not rote memorization or just facts and trivia knowledge. Meaningful performance seeks to go deeper and focus on meaningful actions and problem solving. Application of that knowledge is essential, and the point of learning is to integrate that knowledge to improve performance and real understanding. Instructional design outcomes are measurable, reliable, and valid. So what does this mean? We should understand measurable as something that we can measure or qualify or quantify. Reliable just means that outcomes are consistent. And valid just ensures that we are measuring what we are supposed to measure. For instance, if our outcome of learning was to give an injection, we would want to see injection technique demonstrated, not just take a quiz or talk about it. We want a valid assessment of our knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and we want it to align with what the instruction was all about. Those knowledge, skills, and attitudes of instructional design line up nicely with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or KSAs, of quality and safety education competencies in nursing. We also must remember performance must be measured appropriately to ensure that instruction is effective. Instructional design is empirical and self-correcting. Reiser and Dempsey state that the empirical process is based on observance or experience, so we know that instructional design must be data-driven. Data is collected throughout the design process. It begins with analysis and drives goal setting, how instruction is designed, developed, implemented, evaluated, and ultimately will determine what revisions are made. Data is essential to instructional design. Instructional design is a team effort. While instructional design could be completed by one person, collaboration leads to the very best design. While the scope of the project will determine the size and the needs of the team, involving your subject matter experts, designers, stakeholders, sponsors, and support team in the design process will ultimately lead to a better product and better outcomes. Next, let's shift gears to a model used in instructional design. While there are many design models to choose from, the focus of this presentation will be on the ADDIE model. ADDIE stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. So some of the advantages to using the ADDIE model is that ADDIE is popular and familiar and is widely used due to its structured and logical process of design. ADDIE is organized to address tasks and is an easy process for novice educators to ensure that they are covering all their bases. ADDIE also aligns with the nursing process, which is a benefit to nursing educators who may not have much formal education in these educational models. ADDIE does have some opportunities for improvement. Because it's a linear model, it moves from start to finish, but since each step depends on completion of the step before, ADDIE can move very slowly, and it's more cumbersome to engage learners and stakeholder suggestions. These are also some of the reasons that the ADDIE model has many variations and why so many other models begin with these ADDIE concepts. However, since ADDIE is beneficial for novice educators and nursing educators to use, let's compare ADDIE to the nursing process, or ADDIE. ADDIE stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate, where ADDIE is Assess, Diagnose, Plan, Implement, and Evaluate. The A in Analyze for ADDIE corresponds to the Assess in ADDIE, which is just gathering data and finding the needs. D stands for both Design and Diagnosis, figuring out how to sort and align the problems, and this is based on the data found when we analyze and assess our problems. The D and P, Develop or Plan, this step deals with how we will address the issue and how the problem will be solved and what materials or support is needed. I, Implement, this is the step for implementing or carrying out the planned instruction or intervention. This is the action step for learners. And E, Evaluate, how well did our plan work and how well were our goals and our objectives met. So let's discuss the ADDIE steps a little more. The analysis step is the first step in finding a solution. We begin with a needs assessment, looking at what our problem is. And we also want to identify stakeholders and look at all the data surrounding this issue. Design. Theory will drive the design, and there are many to choose from. ADDIE takes a structured approach to design. Torrey and Pecta suggest that we really should look at the results of analysis. What does the organizational support look like? What is the timeline and budget? What does the data say? The design phase is where the outcomes and structure of learning begin to take shape. Development. This is the core of the ADDIE process and is similar to planning with ADDIE. In development, we'll identify learning activities, select resources, materials, and develop content. This is where our creativity is really seen. Implementation. Here, we implement our planned and designed and developed learning. Instruction will occur and our learning is completed during the implementation phase. Evaluation. This is the last step in the ADDIE model and also the ADDIE model. We use data for evaluation. We will evaluate learner performance and look at the data surrounding knowledge, skills, and attitude changes. And we do hope to see some changes. We will also evaluate the program's performance and determine if our objectives and outcomes were met and what revisions should be made based on our data. Remember, data drives everything. Thank you for reviewing instructional design characteristics and also the ADDIE model. Please review references for further information on these topics. Thank you.